not going to share it publicly. So this is I have the whole set of the Rebbe's Sichot, which are talks, and they're distinct from the discourses. The discourses, I think that, from what I understand, is when there's an actual mamar, a mimer, the Rebbe goes up and he accesses heavenly inspiration, and it's very very it's not necessarily, it is esoteric, but it's also very lofty and brings in different sources, and we did that the last couple of weeks. This week we're doing a Rashi Sicha, and in these talks in general the Rebbe is speaking specifically to, in a personal way, to the Hasidim, to his followers, to his students. And a Rashi Sicha in particular, I looked it up. I researched, well, why a Rashi Sicha? And that's because the Rebbe wanted people to understand that when Rashi is asking a question, he wanted us to start to think like Rashi. And the question is supposed to be something that a 5-year-old would ask, which it's a different 5-year-old than what I would know as a 5-year-old, but it's really coming from a place of simplicity and wonder. And the Rebbe wants us to explore what the simple meaning of the text is, what Rashi says about it, and how we can bring it into a lesson into our lives to refine ourselves and free ourselves from all those things that prevent us from experiencing Geula, and the world from experiencing um, redemption. And the Rebbe always ended about redemption. It was whether it was a discourse or whether it was a sicha, it was always redemption. Not all of the Rebbe's sichot are Rashi sichos. So what I understand is that the Rashi sichos are considered difficult, and maybe some of them are more difficult than others. And I've never had an opportunity to learn Chumash and Rashi. I did take one class once for an adults, and the teacher kind of wasn't able to reach me. I wasn't able to burst that, to get past what I needed to in order to learn how to do it. My kids learned how to do it when they were in school. Your kids learned how to learn Chumash and Rashi in school. So what we're going to do is we're not going to attempt to actually do all the steps that we might be able to do if we learned Chumash and Rashi a lot. We'll just kind of go through the steps and we'll see what we can get from it, what ideas the Rebbe is presenting, what Rashi is saying, what is the take-home lesson, and then we'll do the meditation. So, questions. Please interrupt me if you have any questions.
Okay, I muted myself. I didn't know if I should. Okay, but I will. I just thought when you're talking, so just so you
Okay.
won't be disturbed. Okay.
Okay, so here we are. Okay, so the first thing you're supposed to do is actually had ChatGPT. It offered to give me the steps of what to do when I learn a Rashi Sikha from the Rebbe. So it says first read the verse, and it says to read it in Hebrew and noting every single word. So, but I have it translated, and it's all the commandment in, and it's in singular, which I command you today, you shall observe to do, so that you may live and multiply and come and possess the land that Hashem swore to your fathers. And that's from this week's Parsha. So if you're looking at the words, first of all, it says one commandment. It doesn't say commandments. It says mitzvah. It doesn't say mitzvot. And it says that Hashem commanded them today. It says you shall observe to do, and you so that you may live, that you may multiply, and you may come and possess the land that Hashem swore to your fathers. So, so then we're supposed to read. Well, what does Rashi say to this? So this is actually this verse is very complicated already going in, because you already see that there are all kinds of questions that can come up. Why is it one commandment and not verbal commandments? And why does it say, I command you today? And what is this you shall observe to do so that you may live, multiply, come, and possess the land? And we understand that Hashem said that he would give to our fathers. So Rashi explains all the commandment. If you and this is interesting, if you have begun a mitzvah, finish it. For a mitzvah is only credited to the one who completes it. And then he brings support for that. And the bones of Yosef, which the children of Israel brought up from Egypt, they buried in Shechem, and that's in the Sefer Yoshua, which is Joshua. But did Moshe alone occupy himself with them and not the children of Israel? See, Moshe didn't get in there to actually finish burying the bones. He took the bones out of Egypt, but he didn't have a chance to bury the bones in Shechem. So Bnei Yisrael did it. However, since Moshe did not complete them by bringing them to burial in Eretz Yisrael, they were completed by the children of Israel, and they are called by their name. Um, so what is Rashi addressing? So what we want to understand that the connection between Rashi's interpretation and the straightforward meaning of this, all the commandment you shall observe to do, so you may live and multiply and come and possess the land. Because that's referring to the entire Torah and its commandments. So why does Rashi single out the point, a mitzvah is only credited to one who completes it? So why is Rashi going and saying, we're talking not just about, all the commandments, we're talking about starting it and finishing it. And even within the realm of, okay, so even if within the realm of Agadah, which is the story part of interpretation, there must be a connection to the verse itself, and that connection is not readily we don't immediately understand it. So then the Rebbe starts to give some explanations, identifying the problem. He comes back to that pasuk, you shall observe to do so that you may live and multiply and come and possess the land. And then if you do the mitzvahs, you'll merit to enter the land. And if not, you will not enter the land. According to this, all the commandment means the entire mitzvah, not that. Okay, so it says one mitzvah. So because I guess it says one mitzvah, but it's talking about you start a mitzvah, you finish a mitzvah. Once you fulfill the mitzvah in its entirety completely, and only then will the result of the verse be fulfilled, so that you may live and multiply and come and possess the land. So that's why Rashi says if you begin a mitzvah, so that would explain, he's talking about why it says one mitzvah and not all the mitzvahs and not all the Torah. You should finish it. The complete fulfillment of the mitzvah, not just starting it, but bringing it to completion, is what brings about this promise of this blessing of the verse. So the completion of the mitzvah is what leads to life, multiplication, and possessing the land. So, and then the story about the bones of Yosef, that's the proof that Rashi brings. Although Moshe was the one who began the mitzvah, the mitzvah is attributed to Bnei Yisrael because they completed it. So he started it, they completed it. So it says that they finished it. So how does Rashi fit this into the flow of surrounding? How does it fit into the context? And feel free to interrupt me if you get lost or if you get tired or if you get, overwhelmed. Okay. This may also, yeah. So yeah, please interrupt me if you want me to go over anything or if I'm going into too much detail. For it is possible that one might think, true, at the time when they were in the desert and dependent entirely upon God's miracles, they had to fulfill the commandments in complete form because their entire existence was openly dependent on them. But once they would come into the land, they would live in the derech hateva. They would live in the natural way, and sustained by the produce of the land and the work of their own hands. So perhaps it would be enough to fulfill the mitzvahs only partially. So the Rebbe is asking, so what if, maybe they had to do it completely and perfectly because they were living in this kind of bubble where everything was provided for them. So they had to begin and finish the mitzvah. But when you go into the land, then you're going down into the physical world, and you have these intervening. You have to be the farmer. You have to produce. You have to cook. You have to do all these things that didn't have to do in the desert. So for it is possible, so we said that. So therefore, the verse emphasizes all the commandment which I command you today you should observe. And Rashi explains its meaning to fulfill a mitzvah in its completion. For even when entering the land and living in the derech hateva, the way of nature, the complete fulfillment of the mitzvahs is necessary in order to get to this life, multiplication, and possessing the land. So then the question we want to wonder is this a connection is there a thematic connection to the rest of the Parsha? So according to this, we can understand why Rashi brings the example of bringing up the bones of Yosef. That's relevant here because it was connected to entering the land of Israel. And when Yosef made Moshe, or made the Bnei Yisrael, because Moshe wasn't alive yet when he died, made the children of Israel swear, "You shall surely bring up my bones from here with you." It was fulfilled. It was fulfilled when they left, but it was concluded when they went into the land. So the mitzvah was completed precisely because they came into Eretz Yisrael. This parallels the point. Only when the mitzvah is brought to its completion do you merit to come and possess the land. So Rashi chose specifically this proof to teach that the completion of the mitzvah. So it's a very simple proof that it started at one point, but it didn't finish until they actually got in. So then there's a lesson here. So from this, we also get a lesson in the service of every Jew. So this part is easier. The other part, that was complicated and a lot to take in.
Yeah, that was, yeah. No, but
Yeah.
you explained it well.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, because those steps that they had to do in order to get to the actual going into the land and getting to the redemption and completing that redemption from slavery, that's what the pasuk is talking about. So the lesson and the metaphor here is that the entry into the land we have in our personal service means reach to that the goal is for us to reach a state where I was created to serve my creator in a settled and a permanent manner. And that means that we have to complete the mitzvah in its entirety. So I understand the part, but it's not enough to begin a mitzvah nor to do it partially. You must bring it to complete fulfillment. For only then is the effect of the mitzvah drawn down fully into the person's life. And when it's drawn down into the person's life, it grants him true life, multiplication, and possessing the land to make his portion in the world into a dwelling place for Hashem.
So I'm confused. So for all mitzvahs, so I'm confused. So I don't know why, like when you're saying like from start to finish of a mitzvah, but they were just talking specifically about the land, or it's for everything.
For every mitzvah. So obviously we can't do mitzvah perfectly. So that's
Well,
a
like lighting, I was just thinking actually, it was going through my head, like lighting the candles. So we can do that one.
right,
That's to
right.
completion, right? But okay.
and a lot of times Chassidus talks about the mitzvah of tzedakah. And so what I do, for example, is I take a piece of paper and I put it in the pushka, and I don't use coins because coins are annoying, and you always have to go looking for them, and then you have to count them up. So I take a piece of paper and I write how much each time I put it in. So I do 26 cents each time, and then I do a tally. So it looks like this. So 0.26, and that particular pushka that's behind me, this one goes for either Yad Sarah, which is an organization here in Israel that provides free or low-cost services for people who have disabilities or handicaps or, medical problems. And the other one it could go to is to One Family, which provides services for people who have suffered loss of family members or disabilities in the wars.
Could you give me that information? Because like, when I get paid every 2 weeks, I always like to give, that's when I give tzedakah from my paycheck. So I would love to give to that charity. And in
Sure.
fact, like, so I asked Aiden to talk to some of his rabbis at Rashid in Israel. And so wanted to
Mhm.
make, for a couple of charities that really, really, for sure go right to the people. But I would love
Right,
to, yeah,
right,
also
right.
contribute to those. Thank you.
Yes, yes. So when I do this, and then when I daven mincha, I usually give four tallies. So that's 26 times four. One, two, three, four. And it goes like this. And I put it over here in the pushka, like that. And then I just pull it out before I daven my morning brachot or my mincha. I put it in there, and then when it gets full, then I count up the tallies, and then by 100s, and I figure out how much it is, and then I transfer money through my credit card to that tzedakah. So until I actually go from the beginning of the mitzvah of setting up the pushka, designating I'm going to give the money to that particular organization or a choice of organizations, and count up the money, and then get on the internet, find the website, and send it out. Until that's sending it out and the credit card is debited, I haven't finished the mitzvah. So that's like for me, that's like
I see what you mean.
an
Okay.
easy example. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the example that I haven't finished, and I've been procrastinating for now for over 2 years, is to have a separate spreadsheet with how much money I give, how much money we make, and just calculating, consistently how much money I owe or how much money I'm over for a 10% of tzedakah. So that mitzvah I haven't completed, and it's still sitting, and I know I have to do it, but I'm procrastinating. So I haven't finished that mitzvah. Um, Other mitzvahs like raising our kids, we don't finish raising our kids. Like they're still, we don't finish that until until we're 120 years old. So you can only, like have in mind, that I did what I could for today. you know so I think some mitzvot are more conducive to this beginning, middle, and end, and some are more a matter of, well, this is a process. But as long as today, I would say, that you invested your effort with your whole heart and your whole soul and your mind in doing what you could today, then, and then I think that's all one could do.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So it's not enough to begin a mitzvah, you have to complete it. And what does this teach me and this is the question that a general question, these are general questions that we ask when we learn a Rashi Sicha. And since Torah speaks, so what does this teach me in my relationship with God, my fellow Jew, and myself? And since Torah speaks of the present, this applies every time and place. Each Jew In his own personal service is to ensure that every mitzvah he begins is carried through to its full and complete and perfect completion, as much as you can. This concept that the main credit for a mitzvah is given to one who completes it is also relevant. And so then he brings it into the mission of our generation. So he zooms out. So it applies to me personally, but it also applies to the mitzvah of our generation. The generations before us have already completed almost all the work of refining the world through Torah mitzvahs. Our task is only to finish a few remaining details and to bring the world to the state where it is ready to receive the revelation of our righteous Mashiach. And then,
Amen.
right? So then we're going to summarize and internalize. This emphasizes the great responsibility and privilege we have to complete the task and thereby merit to come and possess the land in its fullest and most complete sense for the true and complete redemption through our righteous Mashiach. So then we zoom out to our generation. We bring it home to the idea of we're completing whatever has to be done of the mitzvah or the mitzvah of bringing godliness and making a dwelling place for God in this world. And this brings Mashiach. However, there's an additional point that the Rebbe adds that one should love Hashem, the Holy One, blessed be He, to such an extent that he will also guard the commandments which he does not yet know. And when he will hear them, he will begin to fulfill them with love. So let's say, for example, an example of a mitzvah that I don't know. So maybe I learned something in the laws of Shabbos, or maybe I learned something in the laws of Shemitah, or I didn't learn everything. I don't know all the laws of tzedakah. I bought a book, so I started by buying an English book on the halachot of tzedakah, but I didn't finish what I started. But if I take upon myself that I should love Hashem to such an extent that I'm also going to guard the commandment that I don't yet know, and when I hear how to do it, then I'll fulfill it with love. So it should be that anticipation and that striving and that clinging to Hashem. But more precisely, the beginning of the fulfillment of the mitzvah, and you shall love, is when one accepts upon himself the yoke of heaven completely, even before we know the details of the commandments. And that's considered to be like what we learn regarding the giving of the Torah when they say Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will hear, which means that they accepted upon themselves to do everything, even before hearing the details. So that's the best way to explain that. If you bring it down to Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do, we will hear, and then the next step, which is the last step, it's very good to teach it to somebody else, and that's the best way to internalize it. So I'm going to stop the recording.